Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar this morning. My name's Andy and I'm the Partner Manager for Bytes. Hopefully you all know that Bytes are one of Microsoft's leading cloud partners, and in order to support this, we employ the services of a number of skilled Microsoft partners. West are a Microsoft Gold partner for communications, and Bytes go-to partner for Microsoft Unified Comms. Today we have Nick Bright and Pascal Coignet from West, and also Fabien Porquet from Bytes, who will run through the voice elements of Microsoft 365. The webinar will give you an insight, but we're also hosting a further workshop in April with West, and we will provide more information in the next couple of weeks. A quick bit of housekeeping. During the webinar, you are muted, but you can submit questions at any time via the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen. There is a Q&A session at the end to answer all of those submitted questions. The webinar recording, it will be made available to you. And also, finally, if you can please complete the critique form at the end, where you can request a call back from one of our account managers at Bytes or directly from West. I will now pass you over to Nick from West to start the webinar.
Thanks, Andy. Good morning. My name's Nick Bright. I am the Partner Account Manager from West for Bytes. Just doing a quick intro to West and what we do with Bytes. We've had a relationship for about 5 or 6 years now, and West as a company are a tech enablement company that connects people all over the world, making people more efficient and making work streamline and kind of helping people with their cloud journey. Today, we are going to introduce a few speakers, as Andy quite said, and Pascal is going to go over a number of solutions that we have delivered with Bytes and how we, as I say, help those customers with their cloud journey going forward. West themselves and Bytes have worked on a number of different customers across a number of different verticals, most of the time with complementary relationship between the licenses that Bytes sell to their customers and provide, and the tech enablement that West have from an IT perspective. And without further ado, I won't speak too much more. I'll hand over to Pascal Coignet. He's our EMEA head of pre-sales. Me and Pascal work very closely around the relationship with Bytes and the Bytes customers. And yeah, over to you, Pascal.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. And very good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join this webinar with us here today. Today, I'll be taking you through what the enterprise voice options are today in the market, what we've been doing so far with customers and Bytes customers, and also share with you some of the challenges that the customers kind of had when looking at enterprise voice. So we all know that we can further enhance Skype and Teams with telephony, but what are some of the challenges that we see and can overcome very easily? Looking in a bit more detail at our expertise, what have we done so far? We're going to give you an example of a recent deployment we've done here in the UK, and hopefully that resonates a little bit with what their challenges were and how we've kind of streamlined and unified the approach and the end user experience. Going to look at a bit, depending on your use case, whether you are today leveraging Office 365, whether you have anything on premise for whatever reason, just showcasing what West can do for you. Also today, hot topic, Microsoft Teams. A lot of questions being asked by our customers. What does it mean for them? How does that relate to enterprise voice? How can they use West, if you like, to kind of uncover how Teams fits into their organization today and going forward? And then finally, how do we work with customers? We want to show what we can do, how that fits in, and how we engage. And as you can see here on the right-hand side, we have a Q&A planned for the end of today. We very, very much look forward to meeting with you afterwards to discuss your use case and allow West to give you a bit more information to how some of these solutions work. So looking at, first of all, the challenges that customers have. So it's really about how can we leverage the cloud more? How do we go from where we are today to the cloud? A big obstacle, or at least something to consider, is what you have today. Most of our customers have an existing telephony estate, whether it's Avaya, whether it's Mitel, whether it's Cisco, and you may not be in the position to just get rid of that estate today. So most of the projects that we deliver it's all about integrating with what you have today, making sure that you can also show to the business that the cloud and telephony is ready and it's working for you before you switch your users to the cloud fully. Another one we come across a lot is contact center. So really looking at maybe your PBX today and performing not just the telephony calls for your users, but also powering your contact center and how you engage with your customers, maybe outbound or inbound or blended. How can we take that component into the cloud and tie that into platforms like Office 365? Now, most of you, I think, joining today are from the UK, but we have, some very, very large customers we work with, and you may also have the need for countries or DDIs or DIDs outside of the UK. So country coverage is something we're going to go into a bit more detail on today, showcasing where we have quite a global reach when it comes down to PSTN replacement. So really making sure that when you go to the cloud, you don't leave unnecessary components on premise that you have to manage and look after. Line of business integration, very key to make sure it's streamlined. Whatever we do, whether it's Teams, whether it's Skype for Business, going into things like SharePoint and other bits, very, very crucial. And then finally, when we look at moving telephony to the cloud, the network is really where we start to kind of uncover whether your organization is ready for that. It's not just about bandwidth, it's about optimizing, enabling quality of service. As you move more and more components and functionality into the cloud, we need to be sure that your network is ready. We also need to be sure that it's tested before you enable your mass users. And sometimes by kind of covering these topics, we come to the conclusion that you may not have the resourcing in-house to actually perform such a project. Or you have the resources, but they're not fully trained in these type of projects. So this is again where West can come in with our architect team to be a resource in your project. So looking at our expertise, first of all, we have a very good standing with Microsoft globally. We have, a variety of different accreditations, a gold partner, but also silver in those few here on the right. But really, what's more important is, what have we done so far? We've done over 300 projects. I think it's closer to 350, where we've taken organizations on that journey with how can we minimize the PBX count? How can we move PBX functionality to the cloud? And really kind of drive that organizational change and digital transformation. Also, Office 365, we've done over 3,000 deployments where we're complementing in most parts the additional benefits that we can layer into Skype, and now also Teams very shortly. So how can we make things stronger that you're already using today? And then finally, we are part of the Skype Operations Framework, which is an initiative by Microsoft to make sure that we cover all of the components required from network to training to adoption and being able to use what you have procured well. And also be part of the OCP catalog, which is the internal Microsoft catalog for trusted partners and advisors. So if you are speaking to your Microsoft team, you can reference obviously Bytes and West in relation to these type of projects, whether it's enterprise voice or contact center. So looking at a recently delivered project, RICS, who some of you may know, Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, about 500 users. The challenge they had is that they had an existing PBX estate that was coming end of life, and they were all about Office 365, using Skype beyond instant messaging, presence, and conferencing, looking at how can we take away the expensive and managed components from an ISDN perspective, simplifying how users use the solutions, but also how to manage it. So they did have an existing contact center connected to that PBX. It was a little bit out of date. They didn't have the flexibility that they wanted to make changes on the fly, to really make sure that the customer experience they had with their members was optimized, and the ability to change things if need be. They used a variety of different solutions for collaboration. They used BT Meet Me, some BlueJeans, and some other tools. So what they struggled with is explaining to users, well, you should use BT if it's an audio conference call, you should use BlueJeans if it's a video call, try and use Skype as much as you can. And the feedback they had from the user community was that users didn't really understand well what they should be using, and the result was that it was hard to manage. Costs kind of tripled in most cases because they had several different solutions trying to do the same thing. So what did we deploy? We deployed a solution that's the Cloud Connector Edition to take away, if you like, the PBX. First of all, we integrated with what they had. We proved that it was working from a cloud, and then we moved the functionality fully into the cloud. And we layered in our contact center solution as well. Again, I'm going to go through in a bit more detail what these solutions are. But the ISDN services we consolidated through our SIP trunking. And then finally, most importantly to the customer, was that they had now a single solution, which was all about Skype for their end users and their agents, so everyone using the same tool. And we layered in the audio conferencing, the video conferencing, so users had one button to click for the vast majority of their meetings. And agents were able to interact with their members using Skype for Business. So the Skype story resonates really, really well. And we've deployed this recently here in the UK. So looking at the solutions in a bit more detail, if your organization is already using Office 365, then there's really a variety of options that we can add. First of all, if your use case supports using the Microsoft phone system, so this would be changing your ISDN or your SIP trunks and porting them over to Microsoft 365, we can help you with the entire journey. We can plan, we can test your networks, we can give you advice, we can also do the configuration and make sure that it works well for you. If you wanted to leverage what you have today, like RIX, for example, connect it to your existing services, we have the Cloud Connector Edition, which typically is an appliance from either AudioCodes or Sonos. You can also use a virtual machine to host that for you. We have options to either do that on-premise or in the cloud, depending on where your preference is. But it's a really easy way to connect what you have today into Office 365. Just note that this solution uses the code base from Office 365, so Microsoft will be responsible for upgrading the software. So just something to bear in mind. If you're looking for something that is a bit more of a managed cloud service, we have an excellent solution in Managed Enterprise Connector, where we leave what you have today with Microsoft in Microsoft, so your messaging, your meetings, your Skype, your Teams. We host a cloud that purely and only looks after the voice routing. So this gives you the option to have a pay-as-you-go service with SIP trunking, consolidating everything in one, having excellent managed services for that. Quality of service is inclusive. But most importantly, we have the reach to replace your existing services in 23 countries. And I've actually got a list I'm going to share with you very shortly of where those countries are. And then finally, if you're looking for something that is truly managed with bespoke SLAs, where you are in control over the environment, we do hosted Skype for Business environments. This is global. This is your dedicated space, but we tie that very neatly into Office 365, so it's the same service. End users don't know the difference. So what do we mean with PSTN replacement? It's not just about the DID or DDI and changing from where you manage that today on-premise to the cloud. It's also about terminating what you have today, whether it's PRI, ISDN, any analog type devices. The idea of moving to the cloud is really looking at moving everything and trying to minimize what you have left, because you will still have to manage that. It's also about emergency calling and lawful intercept. A lot of players in the market claim to have all of these things covered. We take extreme care with all of our experts globally to make sure that the services we sell are actually meeting the requirements, not of just your organization, but also the in-country law. And fraud protection is included. So these are often additional components you have with other providers where that's not catered for. It's always an additional charge, or they're not compliant. So that's something we want to call out. Now, we're going to show you a list of 23 plus countries where we can replace the PSTN, but of course there will always be a country that is not on that list. The only thing I wanted to point out is that whilst you are still required to buy and manage that SIP service or ISDN service, you need a local contract. That's not something we can change. However, what we can do from a solution perspective is make this holistic. So a single dial plan, your on-premise component or PBX or device is part of the architecture you have with us in the cloud. So again, users do not see the difference. The only limitation is that in some countries you're not allowed to go to a hosted VoIP solution. So looking at the countries here, I'm not going to go through these in detail. You'll see this in the recording if you watch that, or again, we can follow up with you in a bit more detail after. But looking at the coverage here, it covers about 84% of the developed nations. We have put a little star next to India as this remains, somewhat interesting and complex to design, but we have the coverage there as well, if that's something of interest. Places like China, just to call out one, will remain a challenge for the foreseeable future. So again, it's all about hybrid if you are based in those locations. But it's a very, very good list for us to be in the market with, to really try and consolidate this as much as we can. If you are staying on premise, I'll keep this slide a bit short, but we have the options to deploy and manage gateways for you. So helping you integrate maybe a PBX with your existing Skype for Business server. We can then also manage those components for you. So if you're looking to outsource the management and SLAs around your business Skype for Business solution, we can certainly do that for you. And then also it's about the SIP trunking, where we can help consolidate, if you like, multiple contracts, making sure your pricing, leverage, and power is optimized, etc. Very interesting slide here around the customer experience. We're seeing a trend in the market today where we've kind of looked after the users for many years. We have solutions in place to deal with your customers or your public, but it's kind of tying this in, if you like, into those existing projects. So, for example, if you have a contact center today that is maybe tied to your PBX, we've already shown you we have the option to move this to the cloud. One of the benefits of doing that is not just cost reduction; it gives you a lot more capability. It's already there in the cloud. You don't have to build a dedicated solution for you. It's multi-tenanted. But we have a very, very powerful flow editor, which allows your staff, so maybe your help desk managers, your customer services teams, to, through a portal, change and optimize and see what's happening with this experience. We can then also layer in a lot of other things. For example, one patent we hold is if you do a lot of outbound campaigns, we can actually detect that the number is in the country, it's on, it's responding, so that if we present the number to the agents, we know that it's actually very likely they will answer. It's these small things that make a big difference at the end of the day in terms of your success. The other thing I want to mention is that we have integration with Office 365. So this is unique to us today, where again, we can layer this in from a cloud, West Cloud, to give your agents the Skype for Business and going forward the Teams experience. Very important to us, because if you leave a user group behind with a different technology, it is often perceived as it's not a full company strategy. So using Skype as the tool to connect is very important. But also things like Dynamics or Salesforce, these are some of the most commonly used CRMs. We have the options to fully integrate with that. So if your customers call in, we can pull up the customer profile and present that to your users. And then finally, we conduct a lot of surveys, but we find that this area is very much on the radar for most C-levels and decision makers, because how you interact with your customers actually is very crucial, as we are in a time of a lot of change, everything moving to the cloud, everything is being optimized and becoming easier to use. If your experience with your customer is not optimized, obviously it will have an impact regardless of what you deploy internally for your users. So very quickly, just to cover what we do then from a hosted contact center, we have inbound capability, outbound, multi-channel, so including things like website integration and so on. Call recording can be enabled as well. You don't need any additional licensing for that. Everything is streamlined under one license. Training, adoption, success management is inclusive. We actually spend a lot of time with your staff, making sure that they understand the platform. It's optimized to what they want to achieve and be successful. It's PCI compliant, so if you are dealing with financial data and card details, we have that covered. For some customers, it's more a tick box exercise. It's a very huge thing for us here in the UK, and very powerful analytics. Just recapping on the voice solutions, what I wanted to do is give you an idea what solutions make sense for maybe your use case. We've seen RICS deploying CCE with about 500 users. So in our world, that is kind of the top end, if you like, of the user count. This is just an indicative number. It doesn't have to be black or white. But you can see that for the Managed Enterprise Connector, there is a minimum user count of 1,000 per data center. And this is purely to make sure that it's also commercially attractive for you. And one of the key things with MEC to point out is that you don't need to be E5 enabled. It is, however, required to still procure the phone system license for your user. And that gives them the option to use enterprise voice, and we become the DAO plan of that. Again, with services right for your organization, we're going to go into in a bit more detail shortly, but it's all about understanding your use case, what it is you're trying to achieve, what are your timelines, and how can we be part of that journey rather than a one-time engagement, giving you something and then figuring out yourself. So we're here. Most of our customers we've been serving for a number of years. Plantronics, to give you an example, have been working with us for nearly 9 years. As we've gone through all of the iterations of voice, we're helping them along many different projects. Okay, so a bit about Microsoft Teams. Most of you hopefully will be aware that Microsoft Teams is really where Microsoft is looking to go next. It's all about creating teams internally within the organization. You have guest access enabled as well, and it's all about channels. So how do you create a UI that is very easy to use, that contains all of the consolidated information, whether it's from OneDrive, whether it's from SharePoint, or just working together with files. Teams is very much positioned as the hub for teamwork. If you haven't seen it yourself, I've put in a demo link that is hosted by Microsoft. It's an excellent way just to get familiar with the platform. And just mentioning that this is, in most cases, already included in your licensing today. So Microsoft Teams is going to change how we work, and I've put in brackets again. So we have seen, of course, that Microsoft over the years have changed their solutions from the OCS days where we had live meetings supporting the meeting site, and OCS was your instant messaging presence. Skype came after Lync to consolidate that, so we now are using everything in one tool. And Teams is taking everything and consolidating everything. So everything you get from Microsoft in kind of one interface, if you like, it is really where the end user or knowledge worker will spend most of the time, and the ability to also to go beyond just the Microsoft Cloud. So very tight integrations into things like Salesforce, or even kind of websites that you access data from. So it's a very, very interesting proposition. What I've put here, that the biggest challenge is really getting your users to change how they work. I've been using Teams for a couple of months, and I had to really change, I guess, how I think about collaboration and how I enable other users around me to kind of go down that same line. And those type of activities are really important to make sure you get the most out of it. So a lot of customers ask us, where's Teams going, and how can I hop onto this? What can you do for me today and going forward? So today, if I speak about Q1, most of the activity we do is around education, about guidance, and I guess explaining to customers that while some of the components in Teams have been updated, so there's a whole new infrastructure around Skype to support the Teams meeting. It's very, very much about, well, you still will have to do the workshops and making sure your network is ready, and looking at things like, well, how can we integrate this into your organization to get the most out of it? So workshops and network readiness are very important. We're already planning some pilots with some large enterprise customers who want to deploy this and kind of seeing how the feedback is before they make the decisions. So again, we can help you with that. Audio video integration, very crucial. So Teams, from a collaboration perspective, we'll have some interop coming out actually in Q2 to further drive the enablement. So connecting maybe your traditional video screens to a Teams meeting, allowing your customers to join from any device, those type of things we're enabling as well. I'll keep this very, very short. The roadmap for Teams is publicly available. The only thing I would say is that really we're seeing a lot of drive from Microsoft to deliver on the roadmap. Those familiar with Microsoft have known that the roadmap was always, when it's ready, we'll release it. This time with Teams, we're seeing the opposite, really, that what they put out there, they actually commit to and they deliver. So what you see here today, for example, in Q1, most of it is out already. They're just adding the final touches. But again, I just wanted to reiterate that this is something that we've seen very, very strongly. So I'll skip past the roadmap here. Again, if you want to discuss this with us in more detail, we'd be more happy to jump on a call. But it's really about planning. It's about getting people to use the basics, if you like, with instant messaging presence within Teams, using some channels, working with colleagues, seeing how external attendees can join those channels and work with you through the Teams collaboration. And then, as I said, it's very crucial to find out how this can be embedded into your organization, as it's all about consolidation. So finally, I just want to reiterate that the guiding principles we do for the overall Microsoft practice is very much sitting down with you, understanding what your goals are, what is it you're trying to achieve, making sure that we deliver on a proposal with the solution or options, together with the commercial overviews, onboarding, typically side by side, I would say, starting with larger sites or an HQ, and kind of planning that journey forward to make sure that it's not rushed, everything is very, very well managed, and you get the best positive feedback from your user community. And then it's about driving value. So we're not there to do one engagement. We really want to be seen as a strategic partner, and we've seen that with our existing customers today. Also a reference that we are accredited to use some of your licensing for these activities. So we'd be more happy to sit down with yourself and of course with Bytes to look if you have any licensing available or vouchers, I should say, for these planning services to figure out how these technologies like Teams or Enterprise Voice can fit into your organization. Give you a very, very detailed report and blueprint, which is often used by customers as a basis for a business case to apply for funding, etc. So we're very much here to support you with that. And with that, I would just like to thank you for your time this morning. I'm going to hand it off to Bytes, who will cover some of the more licensing in detail. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fabienne, and today I'll be talking about the licensing for Microsoft 365 and Voice. Office 365 and Microsoft 365 are licensed on a per-user basis and always on a subscription model. This allows you to pay for what you use by reducing licenses as needed, especially in more flexible agreements, such as the Microsoft Cloud Agreement, which allows you to reduce numbers on a monthly basis. In other agreements, such as the Enterprise Agreement, these numbers can be reduced only at anniversary. And in enterprise agreements, when purchasing cloud licenses, this also means that the agreement no longer needs to be company-wide, so qualified devices and users no longer needs to be counted. And all the voice features that we've seen today are all part of Skype for Business Online, which you can purchase as a standalone or as part of Office 365 suites. In the Office 365 F1 suite, we have the IM and Presence for Skype for Business. In the E1 and E3 suites, the IM Presence and audio video conferencing. And in E5, that's where we really see all of the cloud voice features with audio conferencing, phone systems, which we'll look at in details in a second. Calling plans are never available as part of any Office 365 or Microsoft 365 suites and always purchased as an add-on. You can also see here that Microsoft Teams, which we talked about earlier, is available in all of the Office 365 suites. So we're going to have a look at all of the voice licensing with audio conferencing. So that's telephone number added to those Skype meeting invites. We'll have a look at calling plans. I won't talk in details about the phone system, which is your PBX in the cloud, and which used to be called Cloud PBX, just really because it's licensed per user, either as a standalone or as an add-on to Office 365 F1, E1, E3, or as part of Office 365 E5. Now let's have a look at audio conferencing. There are two ways to purchase audio conferencing, either as part of Office 365 E5 or as a per-user license as a standalone, which will be an add-on to either Office 365 E1 or E3. You can also purchase audio conferencing as a pay-as-you-go. When you purchase audio conferencing per user, it includes the minutes for your inbound conferencing, dial-out conferencing, however, does not include your dial-out in excluding countries, which you can find on that link below here, or toll-free dial-in. These services that are not included are billed within what's called communication credits. And if you pay for, if you purchase audio conferencing as pay-as-you-go, then all of those charges are billed through the communication credits. Now, rates for all the communication credits can be found on the link below, and you'll have slides on that as well later. Now let's have a look at the calling plans. These are licensed per user, but are not part of any licensing suite, so always purchased separately. They do require to be licensed with Office 365 E1 or E3 and must also have the phone system license that we've seen earlier. There are three options available depending on what you need. There is the 120 minutes calling plan that gives you 120 minutes per user of domestic calls. The domestic calling plan, which for the UK is 1,200 minutes per user. And the international calling plan, which includes 1,200 minutes of domestic calls as well as 600 international calls per user. Now, these are pooled on a tenant level. So if you have 10 users, for example, with the domestic calling plan, you would have a total of 12,000 minutes to be used across your 10 licensed users. Any additional minutes that you use or any international minutes used by a domestic plan user are billed through the communication credits, and again that rate is what you can get on that link there. Now, what are the communication credits? They are a way for minutes not included in calling plans or additional features of the audio conferencing plans to be billed. So what will happen is you would set up a prepaid balance amount in the Office 365 portal, along with the minimum balance thresholds, and pay to top up the credits when required. This can be linked to the current EA or ESA agreements, or for any other agreements like MCA would be paid via credit card. All of the details of the use credits and charges that you make through those communication credits are all available as part of the EA invoice and will be available in the Office 365 Admin Center. Now, as you've seen, all of the voice features are actually part of Office 365. And there are different ways in which you can purchase Office 365. You can purchase that as a suite, as we've seen earlier, or if you're looking at the rest of your estate and also looking to upgrade Windows and looking at your infrastructure and identity and security, then you can also purchase these services as part of a suite which is called Microsoft 365, and that gives you savings compared to purchasing the components. It includes Office 365, EMS, and Windows per user, and available, as you can see here, as Microsoft 365 F1, E3, or E5. The E3 and the E5 suite will provide you with additional benefits compared to licensing as a standalone as well. For example, the ability to downgrade Office on local device if you're renewing that from Software Assurance, but also the ability to install an unlimited number of instances of Exchange, SharePoint, and more importantly, Skype for Business servers. So if you have a hybrid setup, as we were seeing earlier, you don't actually have to pay for any of your on-premises installations of Skype for Business, as long as all your users are licensed with E3 or E5 for Microsoft 365. You can install any number of those Skype for Business servers on premises. And then here I leave with you an overview of the different features for Microsoft 365 F1, E3 or E5, which gives you a view of all the different features available there. And now, if you already are licensed with Office 365 E3 or Microsoft 365 E3, and you're looking to purchase the voice features of Skype for Business, you can either purchase Microsoft 365 E5 or Office 365 E5, or you can also purchase these features separately. So as you can see here, you can purchase phone system, audio conferencing, or calling plans as an add-on to Skype for Business Align Plan 2. So that would be to either E3 or E1. And it's worth noting as well, especially if you do have a hybrid environment, that when you purchase online services, not only do you have access to the cloud services, but also to the on-premises CALs. For example, here, if you have Office 365 E3 or E5, you can have the on-premises CALs for Skype for Business Standard and Enterprise CAL. And if you have Office 365 E5, you get the Plus CAL for Skype for Business. And then finally, if you're currently licensed with the on-premises licenses, but you'd like to start using online services, you can use discounted licenses that are available based on the fact that you're paying for equivalent on-premises licenses for Software Assurance. For example, if you currently have an agreement with Core CAL Suite or Enterprise CAL Suite with Software Assurance, then you can buy an Office 365 E1 add-on, or if you have Core CAL and Office, for example, with Software Assurance, then you could have an Office 365 add-on at a much lower price than the full license. Now that's all for me. Thank you, and I'll hand you back over to West.
Okay, so we've got a question in regards to CCE deployment. They want to know, was this done on-prem or in the cloud, and who hosted it? Pascal, perhaps you could help with that one?
Yeah, sure. So the example we showed for Rex was actually hosted in the Rackspace data center, which is also part of the wider West organization. So I think most of our customers, when moving the PBX to the cloud, kind of expect that everything stays in the cloud. CCE can be deployed on premise, but really you're just replacing one box with another. So the preference is on cloud. We have done another deployment recently with another customer here in the UK, the legal ombudsman, who also wanted it in the cloud, and West are actually hosting that as well. So for us, it really doesn't matter, but the preference we're seeing in the market is hosted as a service rather than deploying it on premise.
Sure, perfect. Okay, yeah, so someone else has asked, can Microsoft Teams and Skype run side by side?
Yeah, so actually quite a common question we get from a lot of customers who are, I guess, who are starting the journey with instant messaging, presence, and persistent kind of chat. From a enterprise voice perspective, we can only route the call to one endpoint, whether it's Skype for Business or Teams. You can mix the users as well if you really wanted to go down to that level, but simultaneous ring with Teams and Skype is not available today. It's very much about running them in parallel for the different things you want to do, and then I guess ultimately move into Teams as that comes forward. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, if nobody has any more questions, then I guess we can wrap today's webinar up. If you do feel that there's anything that might come to you later on, please email tellmemore@bytes.co.uk, or you can reach out to your Bytes account manager. We can put you in touch with West and have some appropriate conversations and answer any questions or concerns that you might be having. Thank you, Pascal and Nick, for your time today on the webinar. Fabienne, also thank you for covering the licensing. There is a very short survey at the end which will pop up after the webinar finishes. It's just a couple of questions, so if you guys could just fill it out, it really helps us with feedback and moving forward with future webinars. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thanks guys on the webinar, and I hope you all have a great day. Okay, so we've got a question in regards to CCE deployment. They want to know, was this done on-prem or in the cloud, and who hosted it? Pascal, perhaps you could help with that one?
Yeah, sure. So the example we showed for Rex was actually hosted in the Rackspace data center, which is also part of the wider West organization. So I think most of our customers, when moving the PBX to the cloud, kind of expect that everything stays in the cloud. CCE can be deployed on premise, but really you're just replacing one box with another. So the preference is on cloud. We have done another deployment recently with another customer here in the UK, the legal ombudsman, who also wanted it in the cloud, and West are actually hosting that as well. So for us, it really doesn't matter, but the preference we're seeing in the market is hosted as a service rather than deploying it on premise.
Sure, perfect. Okay, yeah, so someone else has asked, can Microsoft Teams and Skype run side by side?
Yeah, so actually quite a common question we get from a lot of customers who are, I guess, who are starting the journey with instant messaging, presence, and persistent kind of chat. From a enterprise voice perspective, we can only route the call to one endpoint, whether it's Skype for Business or Teams. You can mix the users as well if you really wanted to go down to that level, but simultaneous ring with Teams and Skype is not available today. It's very much about running them in parallel for the different things you want to do, and then I guess ultimately move into Teams as that comes forward. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, if nobody has any more questions, then I guess we can wrap today's webinar up. If you do feel that there's anything that might come to you later on, please email tellmemore@bytes.co.uk, or you can reach out to your Bytes account manager. We can put you in touch with West and have some appropriate conversations and answer any questions or concerns that you might be having. Thank you, Pascal and Nick, for your time today on the webinar. Fabienne, also thank you for covering the licensing. There is a very short survey at the end which will pop up after the webinar finishes. It's just a couple of questions, so if you guys could just fill it out, it really helps us with feedback and moving forward with future webinars. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thanks guys on the webinar, and I hope you all have a great day.